Hi guys, Drone Geek here, or PC Geek as well. Two different channels. But I had some interest in the workstation here that you guys saw. That was in the background. It's a pretty big beast. I was using Asus Rampage 5 Extreme and a 5820K in there for a while. I got that when that first came out. That's getting older now. I mean, it's still pretty up to date. But about a year ago roughly, I swapped that out and rebuilt this one that you see here that says Foxside PC Geek on the side. This is my big baby. It's huge. I stood on the scale with it. It weighs about 70 pounds. I've carried it around a couple times and it's not much fun. It's not really made to be portable. But it's got a dual socket motherboard in there. This Asus Z10PE D16WS. There's also a D8 version. The 16 has 16 RAM slots when the 8 has 8 RAM slots. And then the 8 has an extra PCIe slot than this one, so by having more RAM slots they had to remove one PCIe slot. So this one can support like 3-way SLI when the 8 version can support 4-way, but really no need for that anyways, and the new generation cards don't even really do that. But it's got two Intel Xeon 2695 V3s, I believe they are. They're 14 cores, 28 threads apiece. So I got 28 real cores, and then 56 threads are logical cores, you could call it as well. So like when you're in the task manager. But here's all my CPU graphs going on. There's 56 of them. I was really geeking out about that when I first got it. With the 56 logical cores there, it never fully gets used. There's nothing that takes advantage of that many cores. Even folding at home seems to cap at like 32. But I use Adobe Premiere Pro for like my drone video editing in the 4K, and that only uses about 25%. It just doesn't use any more than that, so there's still 75% left over. With my 5820K, it maxed it right out to 100%, and then it pretty much made the computer unusable while it was doing that because everything got really slow. With this guy, I can be rendering in 4K and playing a game in 4K at the same time, and you wouldn't even notice the difference. The center screen here is a 4K monitor, so I game in 4K as well. The outside screens are 1440s. The three screens, them are 1440s on the outside and the 4K on the middle, so I game in 4K. But it's just nice being able, even if it doesn't use all of the cores, it's still nice to be able to be rendering a video and being able to do anything else on the computer at the same time, and it really has no effect on it. I can play Witcher 3, and then I remember doing that. I don't game a whole lot anymore. I kind of comes and goes in phases. And then you got like World of Warcraft. That's pretty easy. This thing does it in its sleep. And then StarCraft 2 I play a lot of. I have the TV in the living room that I picked up in December-ish. It's a Samsung 8500 series curved 4K 65-inch. And I have an HDMI cable that goes down through the floor, goes through the basement, and then back up in the living room. It's a 50-foot cable, and it works flawlessly, 4K 60 FPS, so I can actually game on TV or whatever without moving this. And I also have a 49-foot USB extension cable, which is from Monoprice, that runs down there as well and back up. And then I have a hub and then a keyboard and a mouse plugged in on there, and then I just take like a one of the foldable tables, put my keyboard and mouse and a mouse pad on there. I leave this keyboard and mouse intact. This is the Corsair K95 RGB, and this is the Corsair M95, I believe it is. It's been a while. I may have forgotten. I know they have RGB of this now. This is not the RGB one, but the keyboard is. And I got this blue Yeti microphone here. I use not for this video. This is just my DSLR's microphone. Then I got I've had this for a long time, a Logitech C910 webcam. Now there's like a 920 or something, but it works just fine for the little bit that it gets used. Then I got this old 5.1 Logitech speaker set. I have no idea what the model is. It's like an 8-inch sub or something on a 4. I've probably had this roughly, I think, since around 2004 or so, when I built my first Uber system back then. It was a what the heck was it? A 7800 GTs in SLI and AMD 4800 Plus dual core. I remember that chip was like $650 back then for this 4800 Plus, and then the two 7800 GTs, which I still have to this day. That was a beast, and that speaker setup is actually from then, but there's really no reason to replace it because it does perfectly fine. I had my side panel custom like laser etched for me with a buddy of mine, one Mad Fish, got Dave over there. He etched that in there. It's a 1/4-inch acrylic. It's not the original panel, it's a new one. It's a little thicker than it really needs to be, so I mean it doesn't quite lock in perfectly. I mean, if I take it on and off a few times, I always check and make sure that it's not falling off because it's so thick. There's like these little metal tabs that are supposed to bend around, but you can't really because it's thick. They're getting a little older now. They're 2 gigabyte GeForce 980s. Not the TI models, just the regular 980s. At one point I had 3. Then I didn't game forever and I actually sold 2. And then I ended up buying another one again. I actually bought a second one again once I rebuilt my computer here. Just because of doing the 4K gaming. One of them, that didn't work. The two can do it. You may not be able to max everything out, but it does a pretty good job. This is a Thermaltake. I know there's a lot of hate on Thermaltake. I know they've made a lot of crap over the years, but honestly, I think it's pretty good. I think it was like $120, $130. It's huge, and you can fit some big radiators in here. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4. I didn't. I was thinking about water cooling the Xeons, but then I never did. And then the graphics cards, I probably never would water cool because things are updating so often. It'd just be a waste of money, time, and effort to keep getting water blocks and swapping them things out. So I never did it. I mean, the air cooling works just fine. There's plenty of room. All the monitors are connected with DisplayPort. There's the 3 display ports. And you can see there's the 4th HDMI, that black one below it. And then the second card's not plugged into anything. I suppose I could connect it. This is my old living room TV. It's a 50-inch 8000 series Samsung Plasma from like 2011. Was top of the line then, and I just replaced that. But yeah, down on the bottom is where it has the drive storage, but you'll see there's absolutely nothing there. There's actually one that's below the motherboard tray, but you can't see it, and I have a terabyte drive in there. There's not much storage because all my storage is down in here. And this guy has 8 3 terabyte drives in it, or 9, 8 or 9 3 terabyte drives. I can't even remember. It was running FreeNAS. Now it's running Unraid. As of 2 months ago or so, I changed it out. Just at the time, Unraid only supported a 1 drive redundancy, so I could only have 1 drive failure. You can see there's some dust in there. So I didn't want to use it. I wanted to use FreeNAS, but now with the later versions, they have 2 drive redundancy as well, and it's so much more flexible than FreeNAS. And it still saturates my gigabit network, 112, 113 megabytes a second. That's as fast as gigabit goes, so it works perfectly fine. Because I know FreeNAS is faster, but unless you're bonding networks together or you got 10 gig Ethernet or something, it really makes no sense. with all the plugins and things like that for Unraid. It's awesome. I love it. And then just the flexibility with swapping drives and adding drives and upgrading drives is much more flexible than FreeNAS is. So in the long term, I think that's a better option to add storage. That's another reason I kind of went over, because I was kind of starting to run out of space. I mean, I still had like 4 terabytes left, but in the big picture, it was getting less and less and less. So I figured it was the time to do it, and I had to replace a couple drives anyway, so I did it all at once. Yeah, there's my keyboard and the mouse, and of course our mouse pad, 4K monitor, 1440 monitors. I guess one more thing worth noting. Them are Noctua coolers, as if you didn't already know, from the ugly beige colored. It was such a tight fit to have them both the same way, so I have one push and one pull. They're both blowing the air that way out the side because it's vented, but one is pulling on the side and this one's pushing through. The temps are practically the same either on both of them. It doesn't matter. And then you can't see it, but there's an NVMe drive on the first PCIe slot on the other side of the graphics cards. That's a funny story there, worth mentioning. I ordered a Samsung 950 Pro 256 gig drive, or 250, whatever they are. This is before 960s were around, and it was off of Amazon. I ended up getting it, and I thought something didn't look right because I build computers and I've used several of them, and the PCBs are black. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, this PCB is green, so and okay, whatever. I put it in the computer and turn it on, and it's not a Samsung 950. It's some Toshiba drive that is super hard to find. You can barely even find it on Google. And so I think what somebody did is they bought both, swapped the label from one to the other, and then they returned the cheap Toshiba one and got refunded the price of the Samsung. So that was an interesting experience. I called up Amazon and I was like, what the hell is this? And the funny thing is, on the box it came in, the box even had like a white tag with writing on it that said fake, F-A-K-E. It said fake right on the freaking box, and I'm like, what did you send me this for? And what they did, they just told me, they're like, oh, well, just keep it, don't worry about sending it back or nothing. They told me to just keep it. So I've been using that since then, and it was free. It's not the Samsung, but it's Toshiba. It's not quite as fast. If I recall, I think it was about 1,700 megabytes a second read versus like 25. And I think the writes were like 1,100 versus like 1,500 or something like that. I'm trying to recall, but I may be wrong. But I mean, that's still plenty fast. So when I render all my footage and that, it's all on that drive. And then once I'm all done and it's all exported, once I'm finished with it, then I transfer it off onto the main storage guy. So that's why there's really no storage in the computer, because I don't need it. And that way it's all 2 drive redundancy. So super unlikely to lose anything with them 8 or 9 3 terabyte drives in there. That is a super micro. It's a super micro board in there that has an LSI Mega RAID controller on it, but it's flashed. I flashed it when I first built it with some dumb firmware, so it's pretty much a dummy RAID card, because you don't use the hardware RAID for either FreeNAS or Unraid. So it's just made it dumb, but it's got lots of SATA ports. I could probably post some of this stuff in the video description in case any of you are interested in it. But yeah, I mean, I think that pretty much covers it. Thanks for watching.